My name is Brenda Egan-Brown, and I am the program coordinator for the BrainSTEPS program here in Pennsylvania. So we're going to talk today about what BrainSTEPS is so that you have a better understanding.
Yeah, because I actually have to jump off.
I think they're going to mute everybody, and we're going to take questions at the end. But we're going to talk today about what BrainSTEPS is so that you have a really good understanding of the program. So when you are implementing your grant, it will give you a good solid background to begin with. BrainSTEPS was created by the Pennsylvania Department of Health in Pennsylvania in 2007. The program is implemented by the Brain Injury Association of Pennsylvania, and it's jointly funded by the Pennsylvania Department of Health through Maternal Child Health Services Block Grant and the Pennsylvania Department of Education through the Bureau of Special Education's core budget. This is a listing of all of the grantees of the Safe and Healthy Communities grants in Pennsylvania and their collaborative partners on the BrainSTEPS teams. So these are the BrainSTEPS teams in your region. So as you can see, Allegheny County, we actually have 2 BrainSTEPS teams there. And also we have 2 BrainSTEPS teams in Allentown in that region. You all should have received a listing of your team leaders on the BrainSTEPS team in your region. If not, please reach out to me so I can connect you with that individual, because following this webinar, it will be really good for you to connect with your team leader and actually have a sit-down meeting. Now, the BrainSTEPS program accepts student referrals for any student in Pennsylvania, kindergarten through 12th grade, and even some early intervention programs, depending on the intermediate unit. But the student needs to have had either a traumatic brain injury, which includes concussions, or a non-traumatic brain injury. So basically, any child who's had a brain injury that occurs after the birth process can be referred to the BrainSTEPS program. And this shows you a nice graphic of acquired brain injury is the term that we use, but it's broken down into these 2 segments. And first, I want to talk with you just a little bit about what constitutes a non-traumatic brain injury. Non-traumatic brain injuries include pediatric brain tumors, stroke, aneurysms, ingestion of toxic substances, lead poisoning. Also, chemotherapy and radiation can cause long-term effects, typically that manifest around 5 years post-treatment, and can cause brain damage, can cause executive function issues. So these are typical, and there's many, many more non-traumatic brain injuries, but these are the typical ones that we see a lot of in Pennsylvania. And these students are or these brain injuries are caused by internal forces. So non-traumatic brain injuries are caused by internal forces, something inside the body. Hypoxia is reduced oxygen to the brain. Anoxia is no oxygen to the brain. So for instance, near drowning, that would be an anoxic injury. And what happens is when you do not have oxygen to the brain, the neurons need oxygen in the brain to survive, and so they will die. So that's how it causes brain damage, if there's no oxygen going to the brain. Infections of the brain are also considered non-traumatic brain injuries. That could be brain abscesses, meningitis, encephalitis, cat scratch fever, even Lyme disease can cause brain damage. Now we're going to talk about traumatic brain injuries. Traumatic brain injuries are always caused by an external physical force. So something from the outside has jolted the brain or hit the head. And this is broken down further into 2 additional components, either open head injuries or closed head injuries. An open head injury is anytime the skull has been fractured. So say a baseball bat, hit to the head and the skull fractures. That's an open head injury. And I'll show you what a closed head injury is in a minute. This is a gunshot wound. This is an example of an open head injury because obviously the skull has been opened. This is an example of a closed head injury. If you look at the areas of the brain that turn red during this graphic, it shows where damage can occur from the brain simply jolting. Your brain does not have to actually hit something to cause damage to it. So if this person might have been sitting in a car with their seatbelt on and maybe rear-ended during a car accident. So this whiplash motion is actually called coup contra coup. And what that means is the brain is tethered at the base of the skull, as you can see here, to the spinal cord. That's the only place it's connected to anything. So the brain is sitting in a very small amount of cerebral spinal fluid, which acts as a cushion, a little bit of a cushion, and the brain bounces upon impact or from a strong jolt. And this is also what we see a lot in concussions when they occur. This is what's happening to the brain. So not only is the front of the brain hitting, but it reverberates back, and you see it hitting in the back of the skull also. And then simply from bouncing around the skull itself, let me get to it here. The skull itself has bony protrusions, as you can see. So when we are looking at the brain bouncing inside, neurons can actually be sheared and twisted, which causes damage. Whoops. Okay. Abusive head trauma is also a traumatic brain injury. Most of traumatic brain injuries are caused by car accidents, which we've been talking about. We talked about the skull protrusions. Now, it's very important in the work that you're going to be doing throughout Pennsylvania that you know a concussion is a traumatic brain injury. The effects of a concussion can sometimes last a lifetime. Not often, but it does occur. I went through our database and I wanted to show you some common occurrences of brain injuries that have occurred to students in Pennsylvania who have been referred to BrainSTEPS, just to show you that they can occur all different types of ways. So these were actually pulled out of our database, and as you can see, some are very common, like car accidents, pedestrian accidents, sports concussions, but others are not, dancing accident, dodgeball, sleepwalking. I actually went in and I thought, well, that's really not a cause, so let's find out more. So sleepwalking, a student was sleepwalking and tripped over something, fell, and then hit their head. So this just shows you all of the different ways brain injuries can happen. Now in Pennsylvania, we have 30 BrainSTEPS teams across the state, and they are situated in the intermediate units. Now the intermediate units under the structure of the Department of Education. If you think of the Pennsylvania Department of Education as the top layer, okay, and the bottom layer are the school districts. There is a middle layer called the intermediate units. So when something comes from the Department of Education, it comes through the intermediate unit. So if there's new trainings, if there are new regulations the schools have to follow, it filters through the intermediate units, and then they in turn provide training, consultation, and support to regional school districts. So for instance, in Allegheny County, Allegheny Intermediate Unit 3 provides services to 42 school districts. So that's just one example. But our BrainSTEPS teams are consultative in nature, and so they best fit in the intermediate units. Now, there are 29 intermediate units in Pennsylvania, but we do have one school district BrainSTEPS team. That is in Allentown. We only have one school district BrainSTEPS team because early on we piloted BrainSTEPS in both school districts and in intermediate units because we weren't sure which was going to work better. And we had about 5 school district teams, but what happened was they began finding benefit in calling in their intermediate unit BrainSTEPS team, who was not an employee of the school district, to help in meetings with parents and to provide consultation to the school team. So a lot of them, 4 of them, did not last, and we really found that the intermediate units do work for BrainSTEPS, so that's where the teams are. But we have one strong team in a school district in Allentown, and they're hanging on. So, and that is one of your areas for one of the grantees. Now, BrainSTEPS team members, on our 30 teams, we have around 300 active trained BrainSTEPS consultants. The great majority of BrainSTEPS consultants are intermediate unit professionals, so they're educational professionals. They tend to be training and consultation, school psychologists, school-based therapists, school health nurse consultants. We do not have teachers on our BrainSTEPS teams because very early on also we did have teachers, and we even offered substitute teacher reimbursement for them. But what we found was teachers can't be away from their classrooms, even when we provided them substitute reimbursement. So we really needed to find professionals who, as part of their jobs, were consultants. We also have medical and rehabilitation professionals. So we have, and I'll show you on the next slide, where they come from. But they serve as consultants to cases when our BrainSTEPS teams meet monthly. Our medical rehab professionals give insight from their perspective. So they aren't taking on student cases. Instead, the intermediate unit educational professionals actually work on the cases. But our medical rehab professionals provide guidance from their perspective. We also have staff from community facilities like occupational vocational rehab on some of our teams. And we have university faculty on some of our teams. They tend to be special education professors or disability support coordinators, and they are really helpful when we have students transitioning to college who need information and support on how to navigate the university post-secondary system. And we also have family members, typically parents, on our teams. If they are a student that is, if they have a student that's at least 1 year post-brain injury. This is a listing of the current participating Pennsylvania medical and rehabilitation team members. So as you can see, we have Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, the Children's Institute of Pittsburgh, UPMC, Reading Hospital, Lehigh Valley Hospital, Good Shepherd Rehab, Mainline Rehab, AI DuPont Hospital for Children in Delaware, because they actually have a lot of children from Pennsylvania, the Barber Institute and St. Vincent's Medical Center in Erie, and Geisinger Medical Center. And so we have professionals from medical rehab who are neuropsychologists, school hospital-based teachers. We have SLPs, OTs, PTs, social workers, so all from that medical rehab perspective. Now, when a BrainSTEPS referral comes in because a student needs educational assistance, these are the common activities that our BrainSTEPS teams conduct. So they will obviously communicate with the family, the school, the student. They do records reviews. If we can get a hold of any of the medical records, the rehabilitation records, school records are key. We want prior to injury and current records. We provide consultation on anything relating to that student's educational plan. We can attend meetings to help school teams, to help guide them with goals that they could create for a student's individualized education plan, which is special education, or to help guide academic accommodations in a Section 504 meeting. Our teams will help if a student is in the hospital or rehabilitation center and we receive a referral early enough. We will help prepare the student for the return back to school. We can also communicate with the district, medical, and rehabilitation professionals. We gather those records to help assist in making educational recommendations or interpreting those recommendations made by maybe neuropsychologists into terms that school teams can really understand. Our teams can conduct student observations, provide peer, parent, and school training, either individualized to that student's needs for their school team, or we do general district-wide in-service trainings. We can really consult on any aspect of that student's educational plan. Also, our BrainSTEPS teams can assist in transitioning a student from grade to grade or school to school by training their new teachers for the incoming year. And this is important because students after brain injury tend to have a great, it causes a lot of issues. They're transitioning. It's difficult for many students, so this is really helpful. I look at BrainSTEPS as they are serving as a consistent point of contact for students throughout their school career. So if a student has a brain injury in first grade, we can be there for them until they graduate. We offer family support, education, and connections to community resources. All of our BrainSTEPS teams are provided in bulk, BrainSTEPS student care binders. And when they have a case that's pretty involved with medical, rehab, the teams will provide these and help families organize their paperwork into sections because they can accumulate boxes and boxes of paperwork. And I even know this from a personal experience because whenever I was a teenager, my brother sustained a severe traumatic brain injury. And my mother didn't know, I mean, she had boxes and boxes and boxes of, she still has them, of paperwork from the hospital, the rehabilitation, and she didn't know what was important and what wasn't maybe as important, so she just kept it all. So we really help families, we can help families go through their information and pull out what to put in a binder or to take with them to school meetings to help share with the school what their child has been through in an easy, efficient manner. But the most important thing that our BrainSTEPS strive to do is really monitor students annually until they graduate. And we attempt to check in with every parent and every school contact for a student until they graduate, just to remind them not only to check in and see where the student's at currently, but to say, does this student need additional support and consultation? Because you know, even though people know or might know that we're still out there, which they should know, they maybe don't always think about making another referral if a student starts having trouble. So we just kind of want to be there as a little flag to say, hey, we're still here. We can provide additional support and consultation. This is very exciting news for BrainSTEPS. So the Colorado Department of Education actually adopted the BrainSTEPS model in the fall of 2016. So we are now in 2 states, which is really awesome. So how can you talk to people when you are doing your work as a grantee to teach them how to make student referrals to the BrainSTEPS program? Well, first, any student that's had an acquired brain injury should be referred to BrainSTEPS. The only type and severity of brain injury that we wait on, we don't want immediately, are students with concussions. And the reason for that is because 70% of students with concussions recover in the first 4 weeks. So therefore, they don't require higher level consultation from BrainSTEPS. Instead, we take those student referrals at 4 to 6 weeks post-concussion. All other brain injury severities, the referrals are taken at any point in time, but really the sooner the better. So if we can have a student referred to us to BrainSTEPS when they are still in the hospital or in the rehabilitation facility, that is key because it takes planning with the school, and we really want to do it proactively rather than when the student's already back at school. So if you go to our website, it's www.brainsteps.net. This will pop up, and this is where anyone can make a BrainSTEPS referral. They click here for BrainSTEPS, and they click that button for Pennsylvania, and then they click this button to make the student referral. So it's very easy. It guides them through. And whoops, this is a snapshot of what the referral form looks like. So ultimately, you know, parents are the perfect people to make referrals to BrainSTEPS because they have all the information usually that we definitely need. However, anyone can make a referral. So hospital discharge planners make referrals, physicians, therapists make referrals, school districts make the great majority of our referrals. And this shows you. This is where our referrals have come from to date. So the great majority come from schools and school concussion management teams, which I'll tell you about in a minute. So right there we have almost 60% coming from just schools. Hopefully, with your help, when you are doing some outreach with hospitals and rehabilitation facilities in your counties, you can help us increase this number because as you can see, we only receive 7% of our referrals from rehabs and 9% from hospitals. So this means that we are not getting student referrals proactively. We are not getting these student referrals until the student's already back in school and the school deems that there's an issue going on. So it's, I mean, in my eyes, we want these students earlier so that we can prevent a lot of issues that could happen later on. I also wanted to show you what types of brain injuries we tend to get. The great majority are students with concussions that do not recover in 4 to 6 weeks. As you can see, we have over 2,800 students. 737 students have been students with moderate to severe brain injuries, and only 389 have been students with non-traumatic brain injuries. So those strokes, brain tumors, aneurysms that we talked about earlier. I want to increase this number because there are so many non-traumatic brain injuries and people don't think of BrainSTEPS refer these students to. So if you could really emphasize that when you're talking with hospitals and rehabilitation centers and schools, it's not just for traumatic brain injuries, it's also for all those students out there that have non-traumatic brain injuries. So now I'm going to segue into talking with you about a screening mechanism that we put in place back in 2013. It's called the Return to Learn Concussion Management Team Model. And what this model is because we were receiving so many students who had concussions immediately, people weren't waiting 4 to 6 weeks, they were referring them immediately because they were returning to school and they were symptomatic. But we were getting flooded with student referrals who, these students were recovering by the time their parents signed our permission to consult form and returned it. So the Department of Education asked that we create some kind of screening mechanism to teach schools in Pennsylvania to manage students with concussion appropriately for the first 4 to 6 weeks. Then the screening part comes into play. For those students who don't recover, they're referred to the BrainSTEPS program. So that's what this model is. Because when we broke down all of the traumatic brain injuries, we had 90%. This slide is from 2013 when we started the model. 90% of our brain injuries were traumatic. 10% were non-traumatic. Of the traumatic, 79% were students with concussions. Of those concussion referrals, 46% were not caused by sports. 54% were. Therefore, we knew, based on data, our Return to Learn concussion management team model could not focus on only sports-related concussions. So we had to, obviously students are getting concussions all sorts of ways, not just sports-related. So we focus on all student concussions. We know that 70% of students recover in 1 month. That means 30% approximately should be referred to BrainSTEPS. Now, school staff in the school building should academically support student learning needs due to concussion symptoms. We know, based on research, that if schools provide academic adjustments and supports to students as soon as that student returns to school after a concussion, that student should recover within 20 to 30 days compared to 100 days if the school provides absolutely no academic supports and that student pushes through their symptoms and does all of their learning with their concussion symptoms. Because after a concussion, your brain needs time to heal and rest. So we teach schools how to balance that need for rest with being in school and learning. We know that too little rest can prolong recovery. We also know that too much rest can prolong recovery. So there's a sweet spot there. They call it the Goldilocks effect. You really don't want to provide too little academic support, but you also don't want to provide too much. You don't want to over-support students so they are coming back to school and doing absolutely nothing, because those students also will have their prolonged recovery. You want to push them just enough so they aren't becoming symptomatic during those first few weeks, but they're still remaining in school learning. And that's what we really teach our schools to do through this online training for school concussion teams. So the Return to Learn After Concussion protocol for schools was created, and it is available. All of you, I think, might have received this, but it's a step-by-step protocol for school districts. Oh, yeah. So you were all mailed a shipment of 300 from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. You should have received it probably sometime over a month ago. Now, these Return to Learn concussion management teams follow that protocol. They academically manage all their concussed students during the school day, and each of these concussion management teams, or CMTs, consist of 2 designated monitors plus others on the concussion team. But each team has to have an academic monitor, who tends to be the school psychologist or the school counselor, and has to be a symptom monitor. They have to have a symptom monitor. So school nurse tends to be the symptom monitor, because in Pennsylvania we are lucky that we have so many school nurses in our schools. So each concussion team has to have an academic and a symptom monitor. But then other people are also on the team, such as the athletic trainer for students who are athletes, this team of teachers for that specific student, so it all varies. Since 2013, we trained between 2013 and 2016 specifically 1,300 school-based concussion teams in Pennsylvania. It's really a great thing for our state, because we really are managing students with concussions in a good way here. We have 2 layers of support in Pennsylvania, and now Colorado also has 2 layers of support because they also joined in, as I said earlier. So that first layer of support takes place at the school building, and that's really what we want you, through your grantee work, to do, is when you are talking with schools, talk to them if they do not have a Return to Learn concussion management team in place. Talk to them about registering online and going through the online training with their team to do this. It's free. They don't have to travel. They can start and stop the training as they wish. And then that second layer of support takes place at the intermediate unit by the BrainSTEPS teams at 4 to 6 weeks. So it's a really nice layered student support. Again, we are the screening, it's a screening mechanism for BrainSTEPS help. If a school would like to register, have them go to brainsteps.net, and the first step to register is here at this orange button. So they register their team initially here. And in the protocol, it lists the 2 steps that they take to register. And I will email you all. We now have a document that talks about the registration process, so I will be sure to send that out to all of you. BrainSTEPS brochures are also available, and each of you should have received a box of 500 brochures, also about a month or so ago, hopefully, from the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Please give these out to your medical and rehab facilities when you're talking with them and your schools. On the back of the brochure, if you could create a label with your local BrainSTEPS team's contact information and place it here, then everyone will know who specifically in their region to contact. And this is something else that you all should have received. So it's called the Teacher's Desk Reference on Concussion. It was created by BrainSTEPS. This was shipped to each of you, but by the Pennsylvania Department of Health also. And it's a really nice document for teachers. So next steps, what should you do next? First, contact your local BrainSTEPS team leader. Set up a time to meet to review their specific local processes, so you could talk with them about how they specifically take in student referrals. That team leader can provide you with your regional BrainSTEPS team's parent permission to consult form that you can even give to parents to sign. You can provide that form to schools, parents, medical rehab providers to help facilitate smoother transfer of information to the BrainSTEPS team. And this also creates faster processing for the student referrals. We have that form because we can't do anything. So what happens is a referral comes into BrainSTEPS, online usually. Once that referral is made, I receive an email, and so does the team leader for that student's BrainSTEPS team. The first thing that team leader does, usually within 48 hours, is they will contact the parent, ask them for permission to enter their student into the database, and they send the parent the form that the parent has to sign before we can begin doing anything with the school. So we have to have that signed permission. So it's really critical we have that, because sometimes someone will make a referral for a student to BrainSTEPS and parents never sign that form. Well, we can't do anything until that form's signed. We have to have parent consent. So that is an overview of what BrainSTEPS is and what the kind of peripheral return to learn concussion management team training is for school teams. And we're really looking for two things. One, we really need medical and rehab facilities to know about BrainSTEPS, if they don't already, which hopefully they do, to reinforce the partnership and the collaboration that we need with their discharge planners and any of the physicians or therapists there, so that they can tell parents about BrainSTEPS, or even make student referrals while they're meeting, maybe a physician's meeting with a pediatrician might be meeting with a student and a parent. During their visit, sometimes some of them will get online and make a student referral to BrainSTEPS while the parent's sitting there. So reinforcing that, and also when you're talking with schools, encouraging them to set up return to learn concussion management teams. Because if schools don't have these concussion teams in place, their students will probably take longer to recover. And we really want students to recover faster. And this is one way that research is showing can help. So now I'm going to open it up for any questions at all that you may have. I think you'll be unmuted. Yes.
Yeah,
okay.
Brenda, I'm going to start unmuting people, so we just bear with me here. We can,
sure.
Hi, Brenda.
Hello.
This is Isaac.
Hi, Isaac.
Hey, I'm not getting any of the mailing still for materials.
Oh, you know what, Isaac? This went to just the health departments that received a grant.
Okay.
So I will send you separately an email telling you how to order them for your team.
You're the best. Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? No questions from anybody?
Hi, Brenda. This is Amanda. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I had a parent approach me and express her concerns over like the impact testing and other testing that some of the schools are doing with students engaged in different sports. Her concern was over students intentionally trying to score lower on their baseline testing, so that if they were to sustain a concussion or a traumatic injury, that they would have a lower baseline score to reach so that they could get back into the game sooner. Do you have any suggestions or tips on how to approach that kind of mentality to really reach the students and express the kind of risks that kind of opens them up to?
Well, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because this is a good place for me to share kind of where the BrainSTEPS parameters are for our program. So the BrainSTEPS program in Pennsylvania, when we work with or talk about or do trainings on concussion, we only stay within the parameters of return to school issues and return to academics. So we never delve into return to play. And the reason for that is because we definitely aren't the experts in sports. We are, educators, so we focus on the learning needs and the cognitive issues. However, we are partnered with the Pennsylvania Athletic Trainers Society, called PATS, P-A-T-S. And I know that part of your grantee work is to do some work with PATS around the concussion watch training. So anytime you have a question pertaining to concussion baseline testing, anything like that, it would probably best be directed to the Pennsylvania Athletic Trainers Society, because this return to sports really is where the athletic trainers come into play for this part. Does that help? I know it doesn't answer your question, but it provides guidance for who's the expert in that area.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay, well, I hope then things were pretty clear today. Feel free to email me. This video will be made available to you all, in case you want to watch it again. But call me anytime, email me anytime. Next steps, contact your local BrainSTEPS team leader. If you need their contact information, contact me, but you should all have that. And good luck. We look forward to working with you.
Hey, Brenda, before you sign off, I was getting a message from Danielle. She wasn't able, I don't think we could hear her.
Hey, Brenda, this is Nikki. Could you just pop up your contact information so that they, if they don't already have it, that they can.
I forgot we had another slide.
Yeah,
there you go.
Thank you.
Andy, does Danielle have a question?
Yeah, I think she's having trouble with her audio.
Oh, okay. Hannah, do you have a question?
No, can you hear me through the microphone? I can't tell if I'm on my computer, but no, this is great. It'll be good. It'll be great to get the slides to share with other people, but this is very clear.
Okay. Great. We'll send them to you.
Thanks.
Danielle, if you're having trouble with your audio, feel free to jot down my email address or phone number and give me a call or email today. That's fine. I can talk to you that way. If there's no other questions, we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you all for calling in, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Yep, bye.
Thank you.
What?